Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Pilot Lawyer Podcast. Thank you for your attention while this important legal information is reviewed. What you hear should not replace consultation with an attorney and should not be considered advice for your situation. On behalf of the Pilot Lawyer and your entire crew, it's our pleasure to have you aboard.
Welcome, aviators, to the Pilot Lawyer Podcast with us, the Eisen Brothers at the Eisen Law Firm, where aviation law is all we do. You're here for what we do best, navigating the FAA medical certification process for pilots and those who want to become pilots. Around the office, we frequently say, if you don't laugh, you cry. And for the next 30 minutes, we hope to bring you the lighter side of what can otherwise be a frustrating process. So whether you're laughing at us or with us, join us, brothers, as we discuss the fascinating world of FAA medical certification. I have an idea for today's show.
What is that?
Let's class it up a little bit.
Start with the brain teaser?
Yeah, I'll get right to the brain teaser. And you know what? That's a pretty good segue, I think, as to who we should have on the show.
Yeah, that's right. I think we should invite somebody who can really class it up the place, somebody who's the top of the food chain in his
Somebody
arena.
that can tell us maybe why my head hurts so much.
Someone
Looking
who's
at Anthony.
Someone who's willing to take the black eye of adding his appearance to our bouncy little podcast. Well, let me say this much. I made special arrangements, to gratis, for free, get one of the best. And that's right. Today we have Dr. Joseph Sirven, a neurologist, an aviation neurologist at the Mayo Clinic, who, in our opinion, I'll speak for all of us, is one of the best neurologists in the country, who we value very much, and any opportunity we have to work with him on any case. It's been our experience that clients who have visited with Dr. Sirven have found him to be down to earth, easy to work with, and genuinely interested in the future of the aviator. All in all, he's a great guy and is someone we're proud to call our friend and colleague, and we hope he feels the same way towards us after his appearance on the podcast.
Why don't you go ahead and dial him up?
Okay, let's see if I can get him on the line. If he answers, he answers. If he doesn't,
well,
he doesn't.
There's no loss for him, at least.
Big loss for us because we've run out of content.
Hello.
All right. So today we have with us a very special guest, Dr. Joseph Sirven from the Mayo Clinic. Dr. Sirven, thank you so much for degrading your career, joining our podcast here with us. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and just tell us who you are and what you do and where you do it and how you do it, all that great stuff.
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure. I didn't expect the verb degrade in the intro, but okay.
You must not be a listener.
Yeah, you're not listening to this.
Okay, sorry. All right. So it's a pleasure, but I guess before I did this show, I'm a professor of neurology or practicing neurologist at Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, Florida. I have a number of subspecialties that I kind of manage in the world of neurology, specifically epilepsy. But the one that I'm sitting talking to you guys today is kind of an interest in aviation neurology and just trying to help where I can pilots and other folks see if they might have an avenue to get back to flying. So that's my kind of where I work and what I do at this time.
Excellent. Okay. Well, as far as the aviation side of things are concerned, and we know you do some excellent work, outside of aviation as well. But when it comes to aviation, can you kind of walk us through what conditions you evaluate and what type of pilots do you assess? Do you assess all sorts of pilots as far as first class, second class, third class, professional or general aviation? And what do you kind of do in that capacity?
So when it comes to aviation, it's pretty much anybody and everybody. So I do have first class and I have the sports enthusiasts. And so it's all comers. I think more people that I end up seeing more often are those that have some type of spell, because that really falls closer to my sub-area specialty in neurology. And so that's seizures and passing out and funny events. Those are the key. But I've seen literally all types of neurological issues that show up. And I've seen all classes of pilots, really, if I had to sum it up real quick.
Okay, well that makes sense. And maybe you're not allowed to talk about this. I don't know. So just hang up if if you can.
I don't want to be committed to a middle seat for life. Okay.
But it's our understanding you sit on the Neuro board at the FAA as well. Is that part of what you do?
I do sit on the Neuro panel. It's not on every occasion. They switch the members up on each panel, but I do on occasion sit with them and do consulting with them. There's always has to be a little bit of separation, if you will. If you're seeing pilots, you also can't be that person who's evaluating them at the FAA side.
Sure.
So there is that detail. But yeah, I do kind of get to work with them, and they're good folks out there.
Sure. We speak to them frequently, as you would imagine, and they do seem like good folks, albeit stuck in the sort of the regulatory world, if you will. But
yeah, I'll just keep saying they're good folks.
Yeah. Well, some of the questions we get asked a lot by clients when, or potential clients, or people that just don't like us, which is a lot of people, is what's a neurologist do different than a neuropsychologist? I know the word neuro is in both of those titles there.
And that's about all you do know.
Yeah, that's what we tell folks.
Okay, so these are very different healthcare people. So the neurologist is a physician, a doctor. They have gone to med school. They have done a residency. I assume they have gotten board certification in neurology. They treat all things related to brain, spinal cord, all that type of stuff. Now, a neuropsychologist is a psychologist. That is that they have not gone through med school. They don't necessarily prescribe therapy or anything along those lines. Now, what a neuropsychologist often does is they do testing with certain, what they call instruments, which is a fancy word for question answers that have been put together in a certain way to pick up patterns that point to specific conditions and problems. Think Alzheimer's, think other dementias or seizures, or maybe they want to separate it. So a neurologist can order neuropsych testing to kind of get further evaluation of patients' kind of cognitive abilities to see if it fits a certain pattern. So it's really, a neuropsychologist really only comes in if there is a cognitive concern, a memory concern, I can't make a decision concern. And that's what's different from a neurologist. Now, a neurologist will screen for these problems, and they can decide whether they even want that. But if the FAA say they want a neuropsych profile, neuropsych testing, then it behooves it to do it, because that means that they have a concern that there's a cognitive issue that the neuropsych person might be able to see the pattern in the testing that they do.
I understand. Okay, well, that makes good sense. That explains it, I think, for me and my brothers here. Now, we'll play that 1 minute clip next time someone asks us. Referring to the podcast. But that makes sense.
I didn't come up with that testing, is all.
But it's not every time somebody sees you that they would also need a neuropsych evaluation.
No, they don't. Because what I'll do, like a neurologist would screen for a mental status concern, and they can, see if there's an issue. Now, if the person's complaining that's seeing you, like, I can't remember this, and the neurologist can't seem to figure out something that's easy to explain, so maybe they'll send it out for that. But it doesn't mean that you have to do it every time.
Sure. Okay, well, that makes sense. And as far as the neurological evaluation is concerned, when someone is, preparing to meet with you, for example, what can be expected during a neurological evaluation? Is it essentially, hey, this person can walk across the room without falling over, or what does that look like?
It's anything and everything. That's one piece of it. If you're falling when you walk to see me, that's going to raise an alarm.
Yeah. We won't be able to get your medical probably in that case.
That's not going to work out too well. Okay. So the bottom line is that when I see someone, it's basically going to just listen to see what's the story that got them to the attention that they need to see a neurologist. What's the symptom? And then after that, it's a full neuro exam. A neuro exam is basically testing every part of the brain and spinal cord and peripheral nerves and muscles to see if you pick up anything or a pattern of something, so you can make a decision whether there is something going on or not.
Sure.
And it doesn't hurt. It's not anything unpleasant. It's just, you have to be thorough, and you have to check things that, from everything from reflexes to watching someone walk to answering funny questions about where are you, that type of stuff. That's the type of thing that we're looking at.
Sure. I understand. One of the things we get asked a lot of is, hey, I'm already flying and I have no problems flying. Can you kind of walk us through what, if anything, maybe even subtle, or I don't know if subclinical is the right word, probably not, but is there anything that, probably not.
We'll have to stop using that one in our letters.
Yeah, we won't. Yeah, let's strike that word. But I guess, what do you tell folks when, hey, listen, I'm flying, I don't seem to have any problems? I mean, is there anything that can be picked up in your evaluations that might be, that they're unaware of?
Yeah, there are. I mean, you're screening for things. And the bottom line, that's great if you're flying and you're doing a great job. If you're being asked to see someone like me, that means something had to have occurred. And so you want to check to make sure that, number one, what's the likelihood it's going to recur, because you want to prevent that, even if you're looking good at that moment. And secondly, if it's something kind of more persistent, you want to make sure you understand, can I do something to stop it, or is this going to change or worsen? Because some conditions neurologically, they're progressive. I mean, you may look good on point A, but a few months down the road or a year, you may not look so good. And you kind of have to know what's happening there to kind of understand what the process is.
Sure.
In many ways, you have to kind of think, and every neurologist I ever work with, they're all there. They're not there to kind of want to hurt people. They just want to see, here's the answer. This is what we can do to help you. And a lot of stuff that people can do to help. Even if you're flying well, you just don't want to be that situation where you're flying well till you're not.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's probably how I'll go out. So. Well, that's a good segue. As though you might have a list of questions in front of you. When you are working with a neurologist.
But are they legible?
No. The ones I sent you had a bunch of typos in them. Sorry about that. But that just shows how good you are. You're able to read between the lines and decipher what I was saying. So your neurological senses are intact. So that being said, when you are looking to find a neurologist to work with, a lot of cases that we'll see are, somebody has never seen a neurologist, and all of a sudden the FAA would like for you to have a neurological evaluation, or you haven't been seen by a neurologist in 10, 15 years or whatever. Do you have any tips or pointers, other than to immediately make an appointment with you? Are there any tips that you would recommend, and when someone's looking for a neurologist, sort of what to look for?
Yeah, I'd say number one, I would check to make sure they're board certified. I do believe in that, because that means that they have passed the test and they know what they're talking about. At least they should at one level. So that's step one. Step two is, sometimes I think neurology, like all areas of medicine, has a lot of subspecialists and super specialists. I told you I do epilepsy. That's even an extra board and stuff. Sometimes it's good to match up the condition that you're reporting to an expert in that condition. So if what's flagging you is a migraine thing, well, maybe talking to a headache specialist might be able to help. Second thing is, if they're talking about seizures, then maybe talking to someone like me might be the best. Sometimes that really makes a big difference. Doesn't have to, but it can, in terms of just understanding what the stakes are for whatever that issue are, whatever the issue is. And the other thing I'd say, and this is just for all doctors in general, just make sure that they listen to you. Doctors in general, there's such little time anymore, so you have to make sure that you got their attention and that they seem like they're willing to help you. Otherwise, you could find yourself kind of really stuck, if you will.
Sure. Well, my brother Alex here is a doctor, and I think that's why he got out.
There you go.
That's why he got out of the business, because he didn't like to listen to anybody. So.
He's no Fraser Crane.
Cognitive deficits that we were talking about earlier.
We're not here to judge.
Yeah, well, only person who listens to now is me.
One track mind.
Has your FAA medical certificate been denied? Are you concerned you may not be able to get a medical certificate from the FAA? Are you at risk for FAA action for failing to report your medical history appropriately? Call the pilot lawyer at 1-855-FAA-1215 to discuss your options for getting the FAA to issue your medical certificate and get you flying. We are happy to evaluate your case and discuss with you a plan for presenting your case to the AME or the FAA. Aviation law is all we do, nothing else.
One of the things, Dr. Sirven, that we deal with quite a bit is somebody will have gone to a neurologist and they say, yeah, you're fine, get out of here, no problems. And from a clinical perspective, maybe there is no issue. But then we get into this difference between the clinical and the regulatory criteria that I think frustrates a lot of folks. At least it frustrates us. So one of the things that we see quite often, though, probably most often when people go into the neuro board and so on and so forth, are TBIs or traumatic brain injury cases.
Yeah.
In those protocols, when there's a request for information on a TBI case, the FAA will ask about, they'll ask for a neurological evaluation, sometimes a neuropsychological evaluation, and they'll also ask for this hemosiderin protocol MRI. Yeah. And I think in our practice, the hemosiderin issue is one that comes up the most, that I think derails pilots the most. Can you kind of walk us through what that is? Because we're still trying to figure it out in some capacities.
Sure. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff there, but I'll talk on the hemosiderin. So if someone has traumatic brain injury, there's 3 buckets that you can fall into from a regulatory standpoint. You can be mild traumatic brain injury, that's a concussion. You're back on your feet pretty fast. One's moderate, and then there's severe. The problem with those buckets, each of those have different meanings for how long you have to sit out, potentially, from flying before you can. And so severe is the worst, it's 5 years, and moderate's 2 years, and then mild is 6 months. I bring this up because how you get put into those buckets depends on what that MRI, what your initial injury is. Now, the way that what hemosiderin is, that's like leftover blood from a scar or injury that you occurred. Hey, it's great that you're there and you're even talking about flying. I always start with the positive.
You're talking. That's a good sign.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm like, God bless you. Like, you're here. We're talking about this. So I try to remind people about step one. But hemosiderin is just leftover product. And the problem with hemosiderin, and this is where it gets stuck, is that in traumatic brain injury, if they see hemosiderin, and if it's hemosiderin in a particular area of brain called the cortex, those are the different lobes of the brain, then there is a risk that the person could develop seizures, and it really sticks to that issue. Now, that risk for development of seizures, if they have hemosiderin or blood that had occurred with a traumatic brain injury, is up to 5 years. And that's why they consider any hemosiderin on the MRI in the cerebral cortex as severe traumatic brain injury. And that's where they came up with a 5-year thing, a wait time. It is probably the most distressing thing everyone talks about. It drives people crazy. We wish there was different studies that would help us kind of not have to focus on it, but that's the best we've got when it comes to that MRI and looking for the FAA purposes of what does that mean. The person may look fantastic in front of you and do well on the exam, but that hemosiderin is still used about that concern for the development of seizures, and they wait out that time if they see it up to 5 years, because that's the amount of time it takes to say that if you're going to develop it, it's going to happen within that time. There's no point afterwards.
I'm going to ask a real quick question. Not make a fool of myself here.
I know, okay.
Hang up now. Hang up now.
Touch your phone out the window. Okay. So is a suggestion that when there's the hemosiderin present, that the TBI was so severe and that's the indication, or that there's some kind of interaction with the hemosiderin in the neurological system that's potentially going to cause the seizures? What's the interplay there?
I'm so sorry, Dr. Sirven. You had to have that question.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's both, actually. So the hemosiderin, so that's the easy answer. The hemosiderin, what it means is that as the blood decomposes, it releases iron in the protein. As the iron, that heme, the thing that goes in the heme part, is released, the iron is it really agitates neurons around it. And in some people, that's enough to cause seizures. And so that's the interplay. Okay. That's the key. And so when you see blood, it also tells you, my goodness, it had to be severe enough to produce a problem.
Right.
That makes more sense. Yeah.
You know what? Thanks for asking that question.
Alex finally contributed.
Yeah.
I was ready.
He is listening.
Well, sort of I think maybe that's a segue here and you're sort of discussing the seizures. I mean, so seizures from a brain injury is different than the type of seizure you would expect with epilepsy, which is your specialty. Is that right?
Well, I wish it worked that way. No, I think a seizure is a seizure. If the ones that come from traumatic brain injury sometimes tend to be less responsive to traditional therapy. So they're more problematic. But at the end of the day, the seizure still gets you many years out and still scares everybody in terms of being able to fly.
Sure.
As opposed to a seizure that got provoked because of a lot of, let's just say, a really good party or something along those lines that they shouldn't have had. And that's a different animal, because then, just don't do the alcohol. Don't do the X, Y, Z. They got you there.
Sure. Well, as far as taking the party favors out of the equation, kind of with epilepsy, we'll be approached by individuals who have had a history of epilepsy or childhood seizures. With respect to that condition in aviation medicine, are there ever times where you have found or feel that someone with epilepsy could be issued a medical certificate and that risk to aviation safety could be appropriately mitigated?
It is possible, but it's rare.
Right.
It normally, though, and let me just put it in the very clear terms here, talking about a decade with no seizures at least. So if maybe someone has had successful surgery for epilepsy, maybe the epilepsy was from a tumor, the tumor's gone and they're doing well, they're off medication, or someone who went into remission and had seizures as a kid. But normally you have to prove at least a decade of nothing, no med, no seizures. So there's hope. A decade's a long time, but still there is an avenue if one has that time.
Sure. And it's my understanding that they're, having read some of your work and just in general, that there are treatments now for epilepsy, but they're not approved for medical certification. Is that your understanding?
No, sadly, that's why there's no med for it, because a lot of those seizure meds, they really make you sleepy or tired. Mm-hmm. So it kind of just not the right side effect for this condition.
I understand. Well, Dr. Sirven, I think that's all the questions we had. You may be questioning yourself as to why you joined us today.
I'll leave that for later.
We'll see what the stats on this one look like.
If business goes down, you'll know why. So take down the whole Mayo Clinic.
Thank you. No, I still have a mortgage to pay.
Well, Dr. Sirven, we can't thank you enough for joining us. We know this will be helpful to at least us and definitely the one or two listeners we have.
Hopefully we can add you to the pool now.
I look forward to it, and I appreciate the invitations. I've actually had a good time.
Oh, very good. Well, it's very nice talking to you, and if you ever need anything from us, which I'm sure won't happen, let us know.
Fair enough. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Sirven. Have a good day.
All right. You too.
Bye-bye.
Well, I think that about wraps things up today. We appreciate Dr. Sirven taking time out of his busy schedule to come on our little show and talk about aviation neurology and how it might affect our one listener out there.
I think I need to go get screened for a few problems, probably.
Well, I know you got problems. We know I got problems. Either way, you've logged another uneventful half hour. Actually,
sort
you
of
know what?
eventful.
You know what? I think today it was eventful.
It was.
So let's
You can actually.
yeah,
go
let's
ahead.
just say
Go ahead and
you
put-
logged point one for an eventful hour.
Point one. Point one for an eventful. Jeez, you need to get down for a screening quick.
Even though Dr. Sirven's going to deny he knows this in public now, we're the Eisen brothers at the Eisen Law Firm. We hope you have a good day. We'll talk to you later. Or not.
Go for your screening.
Yeah, go for a screen.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.